today it's great to chat with Amy Chan on the podcast. Amy is the founder of her new Breakup Bootcamp, a retreat that takes a scientific and spiritual approach to healing the heart. She is also the editor-in-chief of Heart Hackers Club, an online magazine that focuses on the psychology behind love, lust, and desire. The Observer calls her, quote, a relationship expert whose work is like that of a scientific Carrie Bradshaw. And her company has been featured across national media, including Good Morning America, Vogue, Glamour, Nightline, and the front page of the New York Times. Her latest book is called Breakup Bootcamp, The Science of Rewiring Your Heart. Amy, thanks so much for talking to me today. This is a very long-awaited interview for me.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited that you're here, very much so. I've been really enjoying listening to you talk across various platforms, not just your book, but like on Instagram, on Clubhouse, and various other podcast interviews. So now it's my turn. I get to talk to you. I feel so lucky. So let's just start with this, basic question of like the heartbreak that eventually led to you writing Breakup Bootcamp.
Yeah, so I've been a relationship columnist for over a decade, and I just was never able to figure out love. And then I found myself in a relationship where I was like, okay, I've got it. I'm living the dream. And back then, to me, living the dream was date, get married, and live happily forever after. And I thought my happily forever after was set in stone. And after 2 years of being together and living together, that relationship fell apart due to infidelity, and I fell apart. I had put so much of my identity in him and us that without the relationship, I didn't know who I was. And not only was I mourning my best friend and this person I thought I knew, I was now mourning the future that would never be actualized. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And I spiraled into depression. I had thoughts of suicide.
Oh, no.
It was dark. Yeah.
So it really went dark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's amazing. No matter how old we are, like we still have that, like I had that when I was like 16, and I still have that when a relationship is over, it's like, we don't grow out of it, do we?
Yeah. The pain doesn't go away. I think that when you do open your heart and you are vulnerable and you show all sides of yourself, yes, there's a risk to that. And when it doesn't work out according to plan, it hurts. But I think that's also evidence that you opened up your heart, and that's also really beautiful. And I do think, though, learning some tools does make the suffering minimize.
And this is where you come in. So you used, I love how you used this, your own personal pain, as, if I can phrase it this way, as a bridge to self-actualization. Because, this is a topic of both of our, self-actualization. We both are really interested in that. And so I love that you took that personal experience and you used that as a bridge. Can you talk a little bit more? Well, just tell me how it is a bridge, and how you kind of have people not try to eradicate that feeling or sweep it under the rug, but how it can even be a launch pad to self-actualization.
Yeah, great question. One of the things I learned after my breakup and healing from that was that it was a Band-Aid that got ripped off. And I had to deal with all of the unresolved trauma, heartbreaks, starting with the heartbreak with my father, who was completely unavailable when I was young. And at the time, I didn't know it. When I was in the midst of the heartbreak, I just vilified my ex and everything was his fault. But after I got some clarity, I recognized that this was an opportunity for me to really look into those open wounds that I had. And that's really when I started to look at the patterns and ask myself why the same emotional experience kept repeating just with different people. And so that's what I think breakups can do. A breakup can be the shakeup you need to redirect your life. And I don't look at a breakup as something so horrible to feel sorry for someone. When someone tells me they're in a breakup, I'm actually excited for them. I empathize with how they're feeling, but I know where this open door can take them. And I think that if we can take off the hat of being the villain, the victim, and put on the hat of being a scientist and use that past relationship or the past relationships to uncover the patterns that are teaching you things about yourself, you can really grow and create the type of love and life that you really want.
Well, I couldn't agree more with that. I couldn't agree more with that. You said it's never just about the ex. Can you kind of unpack what you mean by that?
Yeah, I say this often because the people who come through Renew Breakup Bootcamp, they're completely focused on their ex and trying to psychoanalyze the ex or vilify the ex. And what they all recognize by the time they leave is it's never just about the ex, it's recycled pain. And our patterns, they follow us wherever they go. The pain that we don't deal with doesn't magically disappear because you've hopped into another relationship or you've gone on dating apps. That's the baggage. That's a compound trauma, and it's just following you. And you might be able to get really good at suppressing those emotions, distracting yourself from the pain, but the pain needs oxygen to breathe. And it's eventually going to seep out either in your reactions, in your current relationship, in your regrets. And so you have to ask yourself, do I want to do the work up front and deal with it now? Or do I want to, deal with a harder thing because it's just going to grow and it's going to compound later on? The choice is yours.
That's good to know you have that choice. Does
Yeah,
everyone have that choice? Well,
we do.
now you just to double click on something you just said. You talked about how you noticed there were these patterns that kept coming up and cropping up in your. Like, are there different kinds of patterns that you've identified after talking to enough people? Getting a sense of this. Are there have you my systematizing nerdy brain is like, have you done the factor analysis on that one?
Yes. The thing is, like, the same there's a handful of patterns. I would say there's a handful of buckets, and
Yeah.
they all go down to a couple of core beliefs. And so even though the outcome might look really different or their situation might look really different, if you peel back the layers, we're usually dealing with a lot of the same challenges. And what I see often is people have what's called a broken chemistry compass. It's something I coined in my book. And a chemistry compass is what I call your internal GPS that points you into the direction of who you're drawn to and who you're repulsed by. And when you don't have a healthy model of what love looks like and feels like growing up, you develop a chemistry compass that might be a bit broken because, as you know, human beings were drawn to what's familiar.
Mine is
And this
very
is
broken.
across
Mine is very broken.
we can work on that. And so, if chaos or unavailability was what you grew up with, and that's what you're familiar with, that's your homeostasis, then when you meet someone who can wound you in a very similar way, you can subconsciously feel like, oh my gosh, I'm attracted. There's so much chemistry. But you're not recognizing, like, oh, wait, this is familiarity. This isn't love.
Yes.
And so that's something that keeps happening. People are choosing partners that are not the right fit. And then they blame themselves that something must be wrong with them. I hear that all the time. What's wrong with me? And then the second main pattern that I see is I would say about 75% of the people who come to Renew have an anxious attachment style. And as you know, these are people who fundamentally are afraid of abandonment or rejection, and they're very sensitive to the cues that their bond or their connection might be threatened. And when they sense that it is, they start to panic, their nervous system's activated, and then they can react in a way that could sabotage the relationship.
What I've been very interested in is the avoidant attachment style. When the person has avoidant, but they don't have it anxious, it actually can be correlated with high life satisfaction. I've been talking to my colleague Peter McGraw about that. We're like, some people just don't care about romantic relationships, but it doesn't mean that we need to pathologize that, But I think the anxious one is the real, that's the one that they can really hold you back from growth, in a big way. Because there's a constant insecurity there, and that's no way to live.
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
relationships or in your life. I mean, I'm a neurotic Jew, like I got, anxious attachment style to the world. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like, so that's no way to live. So I've been trying to
Right.
practice that through meditation,
Yeah.
I've come a long way, and I think that yeah, there's a lot of hope, right, to people that even if they have that in their relationships, they can really work on those patterns.
For sure. And one of the things, you mentioned it right there, meditation, mindfulness.
Mm,
This is a hard work up front.
mm,
That's the stuff you got to do. And you build those reserves, you build those muscles that really help. And also, looking at your entire tribe. Who's the village you're surrounded with? Because the people that you are exposed to on a regular basis, they're wiring you. I mean, you've talked about this in your book, and it's, like if you are surrounded by low safety relationships where you constantly feel judged, that love is conditional. It's only given if you're perfect or you act a certain way, if you're helpful. If you're constantly surrounded by that, you don't have those necessary neural pathways for healthy connection and trust, right? You're always in a state of alarm because you don't feel safe.
yeah.
And so when I work with people on their relationships, it's not just looking at your romantic relationship, it's looking at how are all of your relationships, and look at increasing your exposure to high safety relationships and decreasing your exposure to low safety relationships. That's also super important.
Hey everyone, I'm excited to announce that the 8-week online Transcend course is back. This iteration of the course, which will run from September 5th to October 24th of this year, will use science to help you live a more fulfilling, meaningful, creative, and self-actualized life. There will be limited slots available, so save your spot as soon as possible. In addition to the regular class pricing, we're also offering limited slots for personal self-actualization coaching. Save your spot today by going to transcendcourse.com. That's transcendcourse.com. The Transcend course is just one of the offerings of the brand new Center for the Science of Human Potential. The Center for the Science of Human Potential's mission is to use science to help each person fulfill their highest potential and contribute to the good of society. Toward that goal, we offer classes, coaching, and consulting opportunities to help people apply the latest science to help themselves, their organizations, their schools, their families, and their communities to be more creative, loving, and full of transcendent possibilities. For more on the center, you can go to scienceofhumanpotential.com. Hey everyone, doing this podcast for y'all is one of my greatest privileges, but the costs of maintaining a professional production like this one really adds up. I'm grateful to today's sponsors who help fund the show, but if you'd prefer a completely ad-free experience, you can join us at patreon.com/psychpodcast. You'll get completely ad-free episodes, all while directly supporting the show for as little as $5 a month. That's patreon.com/psychpodcast. Low safety mean dangerous, harmful. Yeah.
Emotionally dangerous, yeah,
Yeah.
or even physically dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But why am I attracted to danger in, in women? I love dangerous women. I mean, I believe in being vulnerable and honest, so I'm being honest with you. I find dangerous women hot as hell. What's the matter with me?
How do dangerous women show up though? What is it that's dangerous? Is it
Oh,
edgy? Adventurous?
well, some of it we can't talk about on this podcast. But the parts we can talk about, just like yeah, I really like. No, I like. You know what? I like a strong woman. I like a woman like a badass. Like but yeah, like some of them can be really seductive too, though. And I can get like in too fast. Like kind of gets sucked into a relationship too fast. That there's a kind of danger there. If that makes sense, where it's like. I want to be more mindful about what I'm doing. Yeah. Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we rush into something so fast, right? Because we feel that chemistry, that passion, we want to just chase it. We're like, oh my gosh, it feels so good. I want more. I want
Yeah.
more. And if we've have a pattern of doing that, and that has created an outcome where we're choosing people who ultimately aren't the right match, or it ends up being toxic, then we know, okay, I've got a pattern, and I've got to be more mindful and intentional about slowing it down, even if the feeling of the moment is rush into it.
Yeah.
And as you start to practice that, it becomes a little bit less hard, and having a little bit more discipline in that for a different outcome.
See my meditation cushion. No, you're absolutely right. Look, you're absolutely right. And I've never admitted some of this stuff on the psychology podcast in the 7 years I've done this. So, you're bringing some vulnerability out of me. Thank you. I mean, I can't be alone in this. So hopefully this advice is helpful to thousands of our listeners, So what does a day at your Renew Breakup Bootcamp look like? What does a typical day, even if there is such a thing as a typical day?
Yeah, there's a complete system in how the entire experience is designed. So when the people come in on the Friday, their heads are usually hanging low, and if you look at their eyes, there's like a glaze. And we start off by setting some house rules. And the number one rule is do not vilify your ex. We're not there to go in a rabbit hole of blaming and shaming what the ex is or is not. And we encourage everyone to put on their scientist hat, because the whole weekend is about learning about the data and the patterns so that we can make better choices in the future. We also encourage everyone to either put their phone in a bucket that we provide or to turn it off, so that they're not wondering if their ex is contacting them.
Oh yeah, that'd be bad. Yeah.
Yeah. And so after that, we tell them also no giving advice. They're in the hands of experts. There's 13 experts. And a lot of times people aren't equipped to give advice, especially around heartbreak. I know when I went through mine, the amount of times people said to me, be strong, get over it. It happened for a reason. And I felt so much shame when I heard those things. So after that, everyone shares their story. But then we teach them how to share their story without re-traumatizing themselves. And we teach them about cognitive distortions. And so they come in with one story, and through a exercise, we actually get them to reevaluate their story, circle all of the cognitive distortions, the assumptions, the interpretations, and write a new story, an updated one, with just the facts. And then they tell that story, and they look at the difference between how both of them feel. And the whole entire weekend is really about reframing that story bit by bit. And then we bring in an anxiety expert. We bring in a love addiction expert. And then on the Saturday, we bring in a psychologist, a behavioral scientist who specializes in cognitive behavioral therapy and DBT. I talk about attachment theory and why we choose people who are unhealthy for us. Then we pair the heady stuff with body stuff, and we bring in a doctor who teaches breath work and takes them through a session to help them kind of move emotion and trauma through the body. And then on Sunday, we bring in a sex educator as well as a dominatrix who has a PhD from Berkeley, who teaches on the psychology of power dynamics. Sunday's fun. Sunday's a really fun day, but you see the women completely transform. And then by the end of Sunday, we actually bring in a professional photographer as well as a stand-up comedian, and the women get their new photos taken of their 2.0 version. And they just look different. Their eyes are sparkling again. They're excited. They're laughing. They're standing up tall. You physically see a difference in them. And that is the most rewarding part, which reminds me all the time, oh, this is why I do what I do. This is why I went through so many heartbreaks. The pain was worth it.
Yeah, I mean, you're paying it forward so much. Yeah. It's so important. There's no rule book we get, I mean, can you help teenagers too? Like, have you ever thought about that, having a boot camp for broken-hearted teens?
Yeah, I mean, that would be incredible. And that's why I'm doing online programs and courses to make it more accessible for those who can't walk away for a weekend. Yeah.
Because
if
it
I
really
learned this
hurts
stuff when I
as a
was young,
kid.
oh my
Yeah.
God, for sure.
I mean,
you have no idea what you're doing.
No idea. I still don't know what I'm doing. But when I was in teenager, high school, just It's like, I can't live without you. I can't live. Sorry, I don't know what just happened there. But anyway, yeah, but it's so dramatic,
Yeah.
so dramatic. Well, you're doing such a great service. So what are the different, I think there are 6 stages of separation that you talk about in your book.
Yeah. So there's typically 6, and I've actually observed there's an extra stage. So I'll talk about that. It first starts off with shock, and this is your body and mind has not adjusted to the new reality without your partner. Then comes denial, which is actually your body protecting you, because otherwise the new reality is still too overwhelming. And this is when you're still rejecting reality. Once you pass through denial, you get into depression. This is when you might feel numb, you can't get out of bed, you're crying all the time. And this is when people have a tendency to isolate. Now, it's really important during the stage that you don't listen to the cues of your body like you normally would, because your body is going to tell you to stay at home, cry in fetal position, and not eat. Also, what we've seen is during this stage is your blood flow is going to like major muscles that prepare you for flight, fight, or freeze. So your appetite becomes like 7th on the priority list. That's why some people don't have any appetite. So you have to actually not listen to your body during this time. The next is anger. This is when you start to think life isn't just. You might blame your ex, or you blame yourself. Now, this is actually a positive sign because it shows that energy is moving and it can motivate you to start making changes. You then get into a stage called bargaining, which is very similar to denial. And you might even relapse and get back together with your ex. This is when you think about how you could fix the relationship, and the withdrawal really sets in. And you might do this, back and forth a few times until you're like, okay, the same outcome's going to keep happening. Which brings you to this new stage that I've observed, which is accountability. And this is when you start to accept reality and look at your part of the relationship, the ups, the downs, and even the ending. And not that you're responsible for everything that happened, but you start evaluating and reflecting on how you might have been complicit to some of the things that happened, which then leads you into acceptance. And this is when the focal point stops becoming centered around your ex and pathologizing them or trying to psychoanalyze them, but that energy and focus moves towards yourself, what you can learn and what you can do. You can be in a stage of acceptance, and that doesn't mean that you don't still feel some residual pain or emotions, but it means that your energy is now about you moving forward to create this next 2.0 version of your identity of life without your ex. And now healing is not linear, and you might jump back and forth, but those are the different stages. And the more you resist a certain stage by blaming yourself or shaming yourself or denying that you're in it, the longer you stay in it. So it's important that you just allow yourself to move through and process all of these stages and the different emotions that come, instead of labeling them as good or bad. And just be kind and gentle with yourself, as if you just broke your leg. I mean, you just broke your heart. It takes time.
Self-compassion. Yeah. Like a lot of other folks, I've needed to update my home office to reflect my new working from home lifestyle. My old office chair wasn't doing it for me anymore. I've been struggling with lower back pain, and I knew I needed to make a change. I love my new X chair. I can sit in it for hours and feel perfectly comfortable. Not only does it have dynamic variable lumbar DVL support so that my lower back is taken care of, but thanks to their new XHMT technology, I can also get heat and massage therapy while I'm sitting at my desk. Instead of sitting in my old hard chair, I reap the benefits of increased blood flow, muscle recovery, and energy while getting my work done in my X chair. All perks that make working from home or the office an absolute joy. It even has 4 different massage modes and fast warming heat technology for therapy when I'm sore. You won't believe the X chair difference until you feel the X chair difference for yourself. Trust me, this is the luxury supercar of office chairs. X-Chair prices are going up on July 11th for the first time in 2 years, so beat the price increase. Go to xchairbrain.com now. That's the letter X, chair, BRAIN.com, or call 1-844-4X-CHAIR for $100 off your order. X-Chair has a 30-day guarantee of complete comfort, and you can finance your purchase for as little as $30 a month. Go to xchairbrain.com now and use code XWheels for free X-Wheel blade casters. That's xchairbrain.com. A lot of what you're describing sound like behaviors that one does to wean themselves off an addiction. Now, there's a phrase that I've seen in only the past couple of years. I'm sure it existed beforehand, but I've only started seeing it called a love addiction. Because I've heard about sex addiction, for a long time, but love addiction is something that I find very interesting. Could you explain what that is, and have you encountered that in some of the people that have come to your boot camp?
Yeah, definitely. So love addiction, we bring in a love addiction expert to talk about this because a lot of the women are actually experiencing love addiction. And when we look at some of the women and how they're so fixated on their ex and getting this attention or validation from their ex, but we look at the relationship, we recognize like sometimes they don't even like the person that they're in a relationship with, but they almost need this rush. They need the rush of intensity, of the up and down, of the unpredictable rewards, which keeps them hooked.
Dopamine.
Right? Just that dopamine. And as you know, when you don't know when the reward's going to come, that intermittent reinforcement, it gets you hooked, attached, addicted.
You're right. I do know.
And it happens to the best of us. It's not that you're weak or you're stupid or you're broken. It's just the psychological tendency. And it happens to rats and it happens to gamblers and it happens to us. And so a lot of the women are dating people who are hot and cold, who are available, unavailable, who give love sometimes and then might be abusive, other times. And so they're caught in this cycle. And so it's almost like you're in a spell. And it's when they start to understand like, oh, wait, this actually wasn't love. I don't love this person who has been abusive to me. I'm just caught in this cycle. It really helps them have perspective and make some different decisions.
Yeah. What you're saying right now, how does that relate to people who get attached to a sacred relationship plan?
Oh,
I feel like they're related right?
Yeah, for sure. I know for myself, I've had this plan, which was date, get married, have kids, live happily forever after.
Yeah.
And this relationship plan is one that you see starting from when you're reading fairy tales to movies to watching Sex and the City or Bridgerton. It's this idea of what successful love and relationships are, and it's completely messing up society because that's not love. The Romeo and Juliet story is not love. That is intensity and love addiction and lust. And
you called it. Someone had to say it. Someone had to say it.
But we base, our ideas of what love is on what we see in the media, and then also the societal pressures. And so sometimes we have this plan, and if we don't meet it, we don't get married by this age, we don't have kids by this age, whatever it is, and we feel like we're on our way. And then when that plan pivots, you just don't know what to do with yourself anymore. You've been so attached to that plan that you can almost fit anyone into that plan. And that's when people do something what's called conquesting, when they're actually dating, not in a way where they're engaging human to human. That person is now an object, right? To be like, oh, you fit here. I wanted someone who meets these check marks by this time. Okay, you fit. Okay, you. And then they go in with everything. So yeah, part of I think learning the skill of life is knowing that the plan can and will change. And if you don't have buoyancy and flexibility in making pivots, you're going to be completely destroyed. And this is building your muscle of resilience.
So important to note that. Just taking this to a neurological level, I know Helen Fisher has shown that the brain on love approximates the brain on cocaine. Well, that's interesting.
Totally. And that's why after a breakup, so many people feel like they're going crazy and they're
Mhm.
literally in withdrawal, right? Like in
Yeah.
Helen Fisher's studies, they've shown that the part of the brain lighting up is the same part as a drug user fiending for their next fix. So I tell people when they're in a breakup, think of your ex like they're your drug dealer. Cut off contact. Don't look at their social media. Create systems so that you're not constantly triggered by these reminders because you're going to be craving the dopamine, the feel good chemicals from your partner. And when you don't get it, the motivational drive is going to cause you to do whatever it takes to get that attention, validation, even if it's like going to be calling them up and having a fight, you're still getting that rush. So, yeah, after a breakup, you need time and space to recalibrate, to let those old neural pathways print away, and to focus on healing and your own self care.
Yes, your own self-care, not the 100% the self-care of the other person. Because
Yeah.
you talk about how some people show up to your boot camp, chronic caretakers. Now,
Yes.
that can cause a codependency. And so I guess you're helping people as well with the codependency issues. Is that right?
Yeah. So there's
You're
a
doing
lot
a
of things
lot.
that
You're helping people with a lot of issues over there.
there's some that go hand in hand with anxious attachment and codependency and overgiving. When we do this exercise where we ask who is, an overgiver,
Mm.
pretty much every single person in the room raises their hand, except for maybe one or two. And we look at the reasons why people overgive. On the outside, they'll be like, oh, because I want to be nice, because I love this person. But when we really peel back the layers, we see that sometimes people overgive as a way to control, as a way of like, okay, I'm just going to prove that I'm indispensable so that you can never leave me.
Mhm, mhm,
It's a way of avoiding intimacy. Because if you're constantly giving and you're not receiving, you're not in relation.
mhm,
For you to be relational, there needs to be a flow of giving and receiving.
mhm.
So it's like jamming a stick in a wheel. You're not allowing that wheel to go. And so sometimes we
Oh,
do
that's a
that
good
because
one.
it
That's a good
allows
one.
us to keep an emotional distance from people. We do this subconsciously because intimacy is vulnerable and vulnerability is scary because it can really touch your heart. So other times people overgive is they're addicted to resentment. They have become so used to feeling resentful that it's part of their homeostasis. They're comfortable there. It's familiar. And so what happens is when they get a compliment, they deflect. When someone tries to do a favor for them, they outdo their favor and you're going to give me a gift. No, I'm going to give you a gift 2 times better. They're constantly creating situations where they're in the deficit. And that allows them to be comfortable with that feeling of being resentful. And I have to say, I am, overcoming my habits of being an overgiver. And
Mm,
even now, when I feel the resentment coming up, I ask myself, like, wait, am I actually communicating my needs?
mm.
Am I actually setting a boundary? Am I actually opening up to receive? Or am I being addicted to resentment? I'm like, I know exactly what I'm doing right now.
You go, girl. You be addicted to resentment. If you like the kinds of guests and themes we have on the Psychology Podcast, you're going to love the Jordan Harbinger Show. In each episode of Jordan's show, which Apple named one of its best of 2018, Jordan dives into the minds of fascinating people, from scientists and authors to athletes to mobsters, spies, and hostage negotiators. I recommend our listeners check out Jordan's conversations with Cal Newport on reimagining work in a world without email, and Lisa Feldman Barrett, who talks about her 7.5 lessons about the brain. Jordan's always focused on pulling useful practical insights out of his fascinating guests. And we're not just talking about pop psychology or wish-washy self-help stuff here. The episodes are often loaded with bits of wisdom that you can use to legitimately change your mind and improve your life right away. It's definitely worth checking out. There are very few other podcasts to listen to casually or seriously to expand your worldview. He's also got a relatable weekly segment called Feedback Friday, where Jordan covers advice in everything from escaping a cult or psycho family situations to relationships and networking to asking for a raise. Jordan Harbinger is smart, funny, and easy to listen to. You'll be hard-pressed to find an episode without excellent conversation, a few laughs, and actionable advice that can directly improve your life. You just can't go wrong with adding the Jordan Harbinger show to your rotation. I really enjoy the show and think you will as well. There's just so much there. Check out jordanharbinger.com/start for some episode recommendations, or search for the Jordan Harbinger Show. That's HARB as in boy, IN as in Nancy, GER on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. I've been on the search for the perfect mattress for the past few years, and let me tell you, I've gone through so many mattresses. My friends have made fun of me because for so long I didn't actually own a mattress. I just went through so many free trials. I had no idea what it feels like to be well rested until I tried a Helix mattress. Are you not able to sleep because of stress and anxiety? It's definitely understandable given the current state of the world. Psychological research shows that high quality sleep is so important for stress and well-being though. Lack of quality sleep can affect your memory, increase mood swings, and even can lead to depression. While a number of factors contribute to poor sleep quality, your choice of mattress can really matter a lot. Helix Sleep makes personalized mattresses right here in America and ships them straight to your door with free, no-contact delivery, free returns, and a 100-night sleep trial. To choose a mattress, Helix made a quiz that takes just 2 minutes to complete and matches your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress for you. If you like a mattress that's really soft or firm, you sleep on your side or your back or your stomach, or you sleep really hot, with Helix there's a specific mattress for each and everyone's unique taste. Personally, I took the quiz, and I was matched with the Helix Sunset Luxe because I wanted something that felt soft, and I sleep mostly on my side all night. I've got to say, I love my Helix mattress. I wake up really feeling refreshed and ready to work out or start my work. Also, I've been tracking my sleep with a device, and my sleep score is consistently in the good or excellent range. This is a new thing for me, so it's really exciting to finally get high quality sleep. I really do love Helix, but you don't have to take my word for it. Helix was awarded the #1 best overall mattress pick of 2020 by GQ, Wired Magazine, and Apartment Therapy. Just go to helixsleep.com/psychology, take their 2-minute sleep quiz, and they'll match you to a customized mattress that will give you the best sleep of your life. They have a 10-year warranty, and you get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. They'll even pick it up for you if you don't love it, but you probably will. Right now, Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners at helixsleep.com/psychology. Get up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows at helixsleep.com/psychology. That's helixsleep.com/psychology. Okay, now back to the show. No, this is great. This is great that you're like becoming aware of all this, because and you're helping people become aware of this stuff, because if we don't have the language for it, we may never be able to comprehend what we're doing or what's happening. What's the difference between feeling and feeding emotions?
Great question.
Am I asking good questions? I'm asking questions.
Yeah. So feeling your emotions is allowing yourself to feel the emotion, pinpointing where it might feel you're feeling it in the body, knowing that it's going to pass like a wave. And feeding your emotion is it's almost like emotional cutting. When you keep doing things to make that emotion bigger and stick around longer. So for example, maybe you're feeling sad. And instead of doing the opposite action, which would be, okay, I'm going to connect with a friend. I'm going to go, jog. I'm going to exercise and, get the endorphins. You instead put on Coldplay on repeat. You might watch Love Actually and these sad romantic movies that have unattainable ideals and feel really bad about yourself. You might, with your body posture, hunch over and be in fetal position and stay there. You do these things and it's going to make you feel worse and worse, but it's almost, you can't help it. It's emotional cutting. I just need more. That's feeding the emotion. And I call it feeding the emotional monster. So I think it's important to recognize this, whether you're going through a breakup or you're just going through, the ups and downs of life. When you're feeling the sadness or the anger or whatever it is, are you judging yourself for feeling it? Or are you allowing yourself to, okay, I feel it, it's going to pass? Or are you feeding it, just putting gasoline into the fire? And choose what's going to serve you.
Yeah. And also another technique you talk about in your book is the importance of redirecting your thoughts in order to avoid excessive rumination. I feel like that's related. I mean, we can be feeding our emotions, but we can also be feeding our thoughts, right?
Totally.
I never quite
Yeah.
put it that way before, but
Yeah.
it
Well
felt
said.
right. It felt right. So can you help people with these techniques if they have this excessive rumination and they're just like, stop, I want to stop already?
Yeah. So training your brain it's a skill, right? And like I mentioned earlier, when you showed me your meditation pillow, that is a hard work up front, right? It's doing those daily practices that are going to help you. That when it comes to game time, and you're about to go on a rumination roller coaster because you've kind of trained your brain and you've done mindfulness and self compassion, you're able to kind of pause and not react, right? But then a tool that can help you in the moment is I love the stop sign exercise.
Hmm.
And so when you notice yourself either ruminating about the past or fantasizing about the future, either way, you're not being present. The stop sign exercise is when you close your eyes, you imagine a big red stop sign, you say the word out loud, stop. Then you open your eyes and you start just looking around and listing everything you're grateful for and why. Like, oh, the trees, I'm so grateful because it's beautiful. Oh, that I have this glass of water. You just keep going.
Mm.
And you keep listing it off until eventually
Mm.
you lose your original train of thought. And then
Mm.
you go off into this other, direction. And the first few times you may be like, oh, this doesn't work. But again, it's like training yourself. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And you learn how to be able to be masterful at redirecting your thoughts so that you just don't get caught up in this rumination roller coaster.
Oh, rumination roller coaster. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. So what are some of the thinking traps we fall into when we're feeling unsafe in an intimate relationship?
Mm. Yeah. So thinking traps are, our way of making interpretations that are not true. They're not based in fact, and they actually add anxiety and stress. And we're all privy to doing these thinking traps. And I think a common one is all or nothing thinking. So when you catch yourself saying things like, I always meet, people who treat me like crap. This
Mm.
never happens to me.
Mm.
Just catch yourself. Is it really true? Always? Like every single person in your life
What if it
always
is
treats you like,
true? What if it is true?
then you might need to dig a bit deeper.
Then you got worse issues than
Yeah.
no, I'm joking. Yeah, no, go on.
So all or nothing thinking is one. Catastrophizing, when you take one thing and then you turn into this huge,
Yeah.
huge problem that's never going to go away. Getting caught up in shoulds. So I should have done that. He should have done that. She should have done that. Right? You're not based in reality. You can't change the past, and and that causes a lot more stress and often a lot of self blame or blame onto another or even shaming yourself. And I think another huge one that happens is making assumptions, right?
Mm.
Maybe you didn't hear back on a text right away. And perhaps you had a few experiences in your past that made you associate not hearing back equals, a threat. Someone's going to drop you or reject you. And so you personalize that, you make an assumption, and you're like, oh, this person must not be into me. This person must be taking advantage of me. And a really great thing to do when you find yourself doing that is actually just writing down a list of possible scenarios with a compassionate lens.
Mm.
And this also, if you're kind of in a panic state and your amygdala is kind of taken over and you're like in fight or flight, this can actually help your prefrontal cortex come back online, right? Your rational, logical part of your brain, just by listing it out and reviewing that can help calm you down. So those are some of the common thinking traps that I see all often.
So this is so helpful. So let's say that like the person really isn't into you, and so that's one of the possible scenarios that you just rationally think through. Okay, like what if the worst case scenario is true? What if it's not? This ain't happening, Scotty. Then what? How can you still show that yourself compassion in that situation?
Yeah, I think first thing is don't fall into the next thinking trap, which is personalization.
Like I'm a
Someone,
loser. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
right? Like if someone doesn't drive with you, they don't want to continue dating, it doesn't mean that you're flawed as a human being.
Totally.
And so often people go straight there, like something's wrong with me, and nothing is wrong with you. And you haven't met your fit yet. I mean, that's what dating is. It's a filtering process. And not everyone you meet is going to be your fit. It shouldn't be that. Of course, it's not going to be that way. And so don't turn into personalization as an attack on yourself. And if you have the thought, you can't control that thought from coming in your brain, but you don't need to feed it. And even just don't even say it out loud. Or maybe, okay, you have the thought and then pair it with a positive affirmation, something that's a little bit more true, a little bit more helpful. If you go straight to I'm such a loser, don't go all the way to opposite of I'm such a winner. Your brain will reject what it inherently doesn't believe is true.
When you said the
Uh,
opposite, I thought it was going to be she's a loser.
right. But don't go straight to the opposite because it's not going to be helpful. But you
Yeah.
want to soften it up, find something a little bit more true, a little bit more helpful, and say that out loud. So I think that could be helpful. And yeah.
This is so good. What are some ways we can express anger in a healthy way if we feel that bubbling up to the surface?
Yeah. So I've noticed with women particularly that they tend in my boot camps, they tend to actually not feel anger. And it's not that they don't feel it, it's
Mm.
that they don't process it as anger because they've been so used to feeling anger and turning it into something more socially acceptable, which is sadness.
Mm.
And so we really try to help the women get in touch with feeling their anger and not feeling ashamed for feeling that emotion. One helpful thing, so exercise is great. High intensity interval training has been shown to be really helpful with releasing anger in a healthy way and releasing emotions in a healthy way. So anything that really gets your body moving. But what I found really effective is actually pairing it with using your voice.
Mm.
So this might mean you grunt, you scream, you yell, and you know it might not be socially acceptable because you don't want people to hear you. But if you can find a way to be in an environment where you can feel safe and comfortable to just let it out. Sometimes we also don't speak our truth, and there's this blockage in our throat. So actually being able to make noises can be very cathartic. And then another thing is actually just journaling, free flow writing. Set your timer for maybe 10 minutes or so, and just write, the anger I feel, and just go from there. And don't take your pen off of the paper, and let it's like debugging, I find. And you're kind of letting the stuff that's like floating around in your subconscious come out. And I think that's a really helpful way of releasing.
This stuff is obviously stuff that's going to apply to not just relationships, but um, anything one does in one's life. I mean, this is like this is such good therapy, a good therapy session for
Thank you.
for anything that one's dealing with in one's life. So let me end with this question then. How do you propose that we redefine love itself?
I love this question.
Hmm.
I think we need to look at our current definition of what love is and what a successful relationship is, and ask if that model is helping you in creating the type of life and love that you want now. Because so often we have a definition that's based on society, on the movies we watch, the songs we listen to, our parents' ideas. And we've all almost absorbed these ideas as if they are our own, and we don't question them. And so, what is success in a relationship? So many people think that, oh, as long as you've been together for a very long time, then that's successful. I definitely do not think that's true. If you were in an abusive relationship for 20, 30 years, I don't think that you deserve a trophy,
Hmm.
right? If
Yeah.
you recognize that you're in a dead end relationship where it's killing your soul and you get out of it, and that lasted only a year, but you learned so much and that helped you in the next relationship for
Hmm.
you to get really aligned with your values and if who you are and who you're choosing. My God, that was a successful relationship. So question these ideas that you have that you might have just absorbed that might not even be yours. Question the plan that you think you need to have. And, ask yourself, if you were to have a blank canvas and you were to start right now, how would you paint that? And see what actions you can take to start, creating that and making that a reality.
Mm. Well, let's end there so we can all get going already with that blank canvas, filling out that blank canvas. Hey, Amy, it was just such a delight talking to you. I love what you're up to in this world, and let me know how I can support it in any way.
Thank you. This was so fun.
So much fun. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Psychology Podcast. If you'd like to react in some way to something you heard, I encourage you to join in the discussion at thepsychologypodcast.com. That's thepsychologypodcast.com. Also, if you'd prefer a completely ad-free experience, you can join us at patreon.com/psychpodcast. Thanks for being such a great supporter of the show, and tune in next time for more on the mind, brain, behavior, and creativity.